There are a number of laws related to children which the international community wants Barbados to change. Among them, corporal punishment, which remains on the law books despite heavy criticism from the United Nations Committee on the Rights of the Child 2 years ago. Well, children's advocate Faith Marshall-Harris is part of that 18-member council, which meets 4 times a year in Geneva to hear progress reports from close to 200 countries which have ratified the Convention on the Rights of a Child. She spoke to CBC News ahead of the next session in Geneva, which starts on September 9th. Our Ryan Broom joins us live now to tell us more about that discussion. Ryan?
Good evening, Lisa. Good evening, viewers. Well, Mrs. Marshall-Harris was part of the Barbadian delegation which last presented to the committee in 2017. Now, she says while there were some positives, there were also some areas identified which Barbados needed to improve on.
They noted with approval our advances in health and education for children. But then, of course, they spoke about our corporal punishment and the fact that they thought that we should not have it on our law books anymore, and so on. And the fact that they spoke to the fact that the legislation dealing with children was particularly antiquated in Barbados, which is embarrassing to me, actually, because we have the resources to do much better than that, and our legislation goes back to the 1930s and has not really been updated.
Now, what's interesting is that the United Nations Convention on the Rights of a Child, which has been ratified by countries which are not even in the UN, does not explicitly ban corporal punishment. What it does, though, is prohibit the use of violence or cruel or inhumane punishment against children. Now, Mrs. Marshall-Harris says the suggestion is that parents should find alternative means of guidance and discipline.
I was appalled recently at a woman throwing a hot iron at a child and burning the child. And I'm saying, no, that we have to get over to understand that that's just not the way we can deal with children and disciplining them. And think of the fact that if she's thrown back an adult, where would she be today?
Now, the retired magistrate who presided over the juvenile court for a number of years is also pleased with plans to establish the Barbados Youth Advance Corps into which the Barbados Youth Service is to be absorbed. She says she's been pushing for the youth service to be expanded for some time.
I used it a lot when I was on the bench because I signed a contract with the youngsters who came before me and said, well, if you maintain this path, if you just improve on everything you're doing, we are going to forget about all your offenses, maintain good behavior, good school grades until you're 16, and in my contract at 16 you join the National Youth Service. 98% of those who went on that contract with me, who were in the National Youth Service, made good. I think we had a few fallouts, but it was basically that the youth service, got them into really good shape.
Now, another issue identified by the committee back in 2017 was the absence of a 24-hour children's hotline. Through a partnership with the Barbados Association of Social Workers and funding from the Sandy Lane Charitable Trust, one was launched in April. However, Mrs. Marshall-Harris says greater publicity is needed so that more children and adults can report any concerns they may have about the well-being of a child or children.